the whole Liam Kumar Day effect, not really happened.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I've Mendel normally said he could make it.
Don't think this whole Phil Predator guy. He's always managed to do well way out, but he is a shocking person right now. You guys got a trophy? No.
It was pre-event.
Well, that's from Richard Mendel.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the LOC Report. Commissioner Stubbs back with you again, and as you can see I'm on my own today because Chris, the co-host, could not make it today, and on the screen you can see exactly why, because you are not seeing anything fancy related on the screen right now. If you're watching on YouTube, you are seeing Chris taking part in a charity event, and Mike for that matter. They are doing a 24-hour endurance race, simulator race for children in need. The race centre of Chandler's Ford. You can go and watch this if you go on the Facebook page for the race centre, and I'll pop the link for the donation in the body of the text for the podcast today. So if you'd like to go donate and do that, please do so. And yeah, worth the effort. Currently Chris's team is in 5th, so they're mid-table, which is solidly better than both Chris's and Mike's fantasy output so far this season. But we wish them all the best of luck, because they've got a long 24 hours ahead of them. Oh, we don't want any jingles yet, but no, yeah, please go do that if you want to. Meanwhile, we will go to back to the LOC, obviously, because that's what we're here to talk about today. And I will just check that my audio is working real quickly. We're good, yep, because I don't want to sit here and talk to myself for an hour, much less you probably sit here and listen to me for an hour, but that's what we're going to do anyway. So we'll start it off anyway, obviously, with the Week 10 recaps. We're obviously getting closer and closer to the playoffs, only after the week just gone. Now we only have 4 weeks to go. So a very pivotal week. It does last week did have an interesting effect on the playoff picture, and it was a fairly good scoring week on the whole. A number of close games, competitive games across the league, which we like to see, obviously. Myself and Chris were terrible in the pick'em, so without further ado, let's see what happened. So, starting off with the marquee matchup of the week last week, if you can really call it that. Chris did pick this one for its playoff ramifications, because it involved two teams in the hunt for a playoff spot. I think Badetonators maybe held the points forward wild card starting the week at least. Meanwhile, Ixan on the outside looking in with a 5-4 record. They very much needed a win to stay alive. Badetonators with the win, a Gridiron Gang loss, could have retaken control of the Winchester division, and Ixan win another crucial game, second one on the bounce, with a less exciting score of 80-66. We did predict this one would be a gritty low score, and that is exactly what happened. But it's still a huge win for Ben, because this keeps their season alive at 6-4, and depending what happened elsewhere, we'll see that a bit. That obviously can, has an impact on the playoff picture as well. The loss does unfortunately mean Ollie was prevented from taking the lead in the Winchester division because my team, Gridiron Gang, is ahead quite significantly of his in the points. So the only way he'll finish above me is if he has more wins. But yeah, we'll take a look down the teams. Myself and Chris will have to eat some crow, because we were a bit dubious on the Josh Dobbs QB stream in the absence of Patrick Mahomes, who was on a bye for Ben, especially the money that Ben spent on him to do so. But he delivered 27 points. Certainly, you could argue, was the difference in the game. Came through in a big way against a tough defense, New Orleans defense. So good job by Ben there, picking that one. And Eckler as well had a solid day. Ben really needed Eckler to come back and be the Austin Eckler of old, and he has been that over the last few weeks, and that obviously helped them with the win here. It's just as well though, because you can see beyond that, and Mike Evans had a great day as well. Mike Evans has been a real bright spot for Ben the whole season long, but beyond that, it was a pretty torrid week on Ben's team. Aaron Jones still isn't firing, still not a guy that he can really rely on week in and week out. But he gets the crucial win all the same, keeps him alive for another week. Whereas for Ollie, it was a very unfortunate bye week, as you can see on the bench, and he had a couple of injuries to deal with, an injury to Nico Collins to deal with. Made a decision to bench Devontae Adams over Romeo Dobbs, which was effectively the right call. They did finish at about the same mark, and obviously the result wouldn't have changed even if he played him over other players like Deontay Johnson, only got him 2 points. But really for Ollie, it was Will Levis that cost him in this one. He only got 6 points. He was in an hour in between what to go through between Geno Smith or him. I think Geno may have won him the week, probably would have won him the week had he gone with him, but I can't be too critical because Geno's not been great. The matchup for Levis was quite good. He just didn't deliver, and as you can see, the rest of the team did okay. No one really had a brilliant week, but whenever your QB scores 6 points, it's tough to overcome. So the rest of the skill positions did okay beyond that. If he had Hurts, if he didn't have the bye week, obviously it would have been a very, very different story because Hurts is kind of really what makes all his team work. Obviously with all the players he's lost, he's done a good job of replenishing, but he doesn't have the punchy star power. He's got a lot of good contributors, but not a lot of shiny players. And even then, to be honest, the bye week, maybe DeAndre Swift is the only one he was probably really missing from the byes. But going forward, it will be Jalen Hurts. Obviously, really helps him going forward. So these teams are both 6-4 now. The history of this matchup all time, Bedetonators are now 8-9 against Ben. So Ben takes the lead in the series there. We'll go on to the next game then, which is the other Winchester Division game. Me and Chris, we both picked Ixan on that, by the way. So we got that right off to a good start there. Don't get used to it for this week. So our next game then was Gridiron Gang against Tom Starrett, the other Winchester Division playoff race. Entering the game with a 6-3 record and leading the division. Tom Starrett at 3-6 entering the week. But as you can see here, Tom Starrett takes this one, and I think they were the highest score. Yeah, they were the highest score on the week last week with 115 points to 99 points, and a real big missed opportunity for my team. I nearly locked myself last week. I'm very, very glad I didn't do that. The Jekyll and Hyde team of Tom Starrett, which we thought was just Jekyll, but Hyde's back apparently, they return, and real bad time for me because I could have taken a firm lead in the division. If I got that extra win, it's almost like a 2-win lead in a way because of the points advantage I would have had, or I do have overall, but obviously we remain level for now. Looking at Tom's team, Joe Burrow, he's obviously come through. He was over he's over his calf issues at the earlier point of the season. We'll obviously come on to the previews, any more developments with Joe Burrow, but a solid performance here. But it was really Keenan Allen and Brian Robinson that coming through in a big way. I was watching this game. The 6 p.m. games didn't go great for me, but I was kind of still in it. It was when those 9 p.m. games kicked off, and I saw Brian Robinson streak down the sideline for I think it must have been like a 60-yard touchdown or something. Brian Robinson does not do much in the passing game, let alone score 60-yard touchdowns. So sitting there watching that, I was like, yeah, you know what? Don't think today is going to be my day. I was right. I was still in a race for it. Entering the Monday night game, I had Josh Allen and Tom had James Cook, and I think I had a points deficit about 25 or something like that. I can't quite remember, but it was there. But I couldn't pull it off. Josh Allen obviously didn't have the greatest day, which cost his offensive coordinator his job ultimately as well. Good performance overall by Tom's team. But a couple of real high punchy players. I mean, Keenan Allen 30 points, ridiculous. Just all of them turned up. Even James Cook, he got 10 points. Dustin Hopkins as well from the kicker, 13 points. So good week by Tom for what was obviously been quite an inconsistent team. Going over to my side of the board, look, I still got 99 points. It's still a good score. In fact, really in the skill positions, it was only Taysom Hill that let me down. Mari Cooper I had on the bench, but it wouldn't have made the difference in the final result. I've had a few of these games this year. I've just been outscored a few times. It is what it is. Thank God I've got the points forward because it's hopefully going to help me down the stretch, whether I lock up the division or not. Outscored on this one. So we'll just have to see what happens going forward. Tyler Lockett, obviously I traded for him before these games. Last week he came through paying early dividends. He got more points than Kareem Hunt did last week. He got 15. So a good start. His Gridiron Gang, return to Gridiron Gang here. But Tom takes this one. He also again takes the lead in the series, 9-8 over my team now as well. On to the next game then, which is the Dream Team against Forge Flyers. By the way, we both picked my team for that game, and we were both quite smug about it, but we were both quite confident in that, and yeah, that blew up, didn't it? Anyway, the Dream Team against Forge Flyers. So again, entering this one, I think the Dream Team was in control of the Pulse division on the same record as Great Scott. Meanwhile, Forge Flyers obviously sitting at 2-7, looking to just play spoilers. We potentially thought, I certainly thought they could do it last week, but no, it is Viv that takes this one 100-71, and obviously depending what else happened, he could be building up a little bit of a lead in the Portsmouth division, and unfortunately for me, I did actually lock Chris's team in this one, so I get one of the old yeah, and Chris drops his 4th game on the bounce. He drops to a 2-8 record now. Meanwhile, Viv extends his win streak to 3. Let's take a look down. Let's start with Chris, because I did look him up. Murray, 17 points. Could have been a better day, but an okay day to begin with in his first game back from obviously his injury. And it will help stabilise the QB room. He did have Sam Howell on the bench, because obviously Chris loves bench points. He got 30. It wouldn't have changed the result in this one though. Yeah, good for the QB room all the same. But it was really, as you can see, the rest of the team that just completely let Chris down here. Only one touchdown among the skill positions, which was Ayuk, and he still only finished with 12 points on the day. In fact, Stevenson was the only other skill position to finish over 10 points. He got just over 10 as well. And the Cowboys D, I'm going to say only 15 against the Giants. I mean, they could have blown up in a big spot, but they didn't. They conceded 17 points actually. So yeah, it is what it is for Chris's team. He obviously, it's been a rough year for him. He'll just be looking to have some fun down the stretch. We're going to the other side of the board. For Viv, yeah, real solid week. An overall level, 100 points. But you peek behind the curtain, and it was really 2 players that effectively won him this one. In fact, I think, yeah, the 2 players on their own weren't far off literally winning this one on their own for Viv. Justin Herbert 36, CeeDee Lamb 29. CeeDee Lamb's obviously been the massive beneficiary of Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys really heating up. This is the nature of Viv's team. It is a boom bust flashy team. It's a classic dream team. Not every player is going to turn up every week, but when they only need the 1 or 2 to turn up, and it's going to give them a good chunk of points. Get you to 100 points. I always kind of aim for about 90 points as the benchmark, or 80, 90 points. And that gives you a fair shot of beating at least some of the teams in the league. It's exactly what happened here for Viv. So a good week overall. Some players disappeared, but the next week they'll turn up and the other ones will disappear. That's just how it goes with Viv's team. And you'd be hard pressed to say it's not going to continue to work. That is the blueprint. You look at the bench. Here's guys like Jalen Warren, who's been a revelation really. Keaton Mitchell was the waiver out last week. He's looking like he could be a good option. Even you can see the D points there on the bench as well. From the Niners D, so top to bottom, just a good team. You would be very surprised if Viv didn't make it to the playoffs at this point. So yeah, at 7-3, it's good for him. The record of these 2 teams against each other now, the Dream Team is 9-7 against Forge Flyers. Next game, it's the King himself, your Gold, Coach Gardner Beddoes against Bucking the Trend, and he remains alive because once again he faces another team that doesn't score 71 points. He was spared the music because you did have a fair day, 101 points, but again, you peek behind the curtain. Brock Purdy, he has a nice day, so good choice on the stream of 30 points. None of the skill positions going over 10. The closest was Metcalf with 9.8. Once again, the kicker and the defense absolutely bailing him out from what would have been an underwhelming week. 21 points from Jason Myers and 18 points from the Colts defense. Look, probably still does, win the week, even if he doesn't have those big D points. But again, with the skill positions on this team are not coming through for him. And James Conner, he came back first game, wasn't great, could be a bit better. Okay, he had AJ Brown on a bye there as well. But there's not a lot of options on this team, but they just continue to benefit from the low points on the other side of the board. He's sitting at 8-2 now though, 4-game win streak. That's I think the longest active in the LOC. And you'd be hard pressed to say that he's not going to make the playoffs at this point, because we'll see what happens elsewhere. But Once you get to 8-9 wins, that's typically enough to get you in the playoffs. He's in a heated divisional race as well. Again, we'll see what happens with that in a second. It's frustrating, for some other of the playoff hopefuls when you see this happen to one team. But he's getting the wins, and it is what it is. For Mike's team, they've been fairly solid this year. Again, it's not the best of weeks, but it's not terrible. It's a good stream with Baker Mayfield to Tagovailoa on a bye, 22 points there, but no touchdowns in the skill positions. Much like your gold, only one of them got over. Only one skill position player in this game got over 10 points, and they got 10.7. It's quite depressing. So just not a great day overall for Mike's team. We know it's been a rough ride for him this year. Sitting at 1-9 now, so it's looking pretty bleak. That this is among, to this point of the season, one of, if not the worst starts to an LFC season. I famously went, I think, 0-8 that year, but then I managed to somehow cobble together 3 wins down the stretch. If Mike's not able to do that, he's on the cards for potentially the worst season we've seen. He did have some players on bye. He does have those coming back next week, but not looking good at the moment for Mike. So the history of this matchup all the time now. You Are Gold is 2-3 all time against Mike's team. We're going to the next game, penultimate game of last week, which pitted Pat Stan against Great Scott. Again, this probably should have been the marquee matchup, and we kind of said that in the preview because this is the one that we thought could kind of pop. Again, had the Southampton division leader entering the week against Great Scott, who was chasing in the Pulsar division, but tied again on wins with the Dream Team. And boy, it was a nail biter. This one came right down to the wire, literally in score and while the games were happening, because the games finished at the same time. 112 to 111. Pakistan picks up a huge win to extend their win streak to 3 games, and Jeff drops 2 on the bounce. Again, I'll remind you, only a few weeks ago he was the number 1 seed at 6-2. Now sitting as 6-4, and on the outside looking in regards to the playoff hunt, not currently a playoff seeded team, so it's a bitter pill to swallow for Great Scott here. But we'll talk about Pat to start with. He started Jared Goff, and boy, what a big decision he had between him and CJ Stroud, and he would have lost if he played CJ Stroud in this one because he got 4 less points than Goff. So a great call by Pat there to get him the win. This keeps him ahead in the the Southampton division as well on points with the UR Gold win. Meanwhile, Great Scott, they fall behind the Dream Team by a win now there. You look at Pat's team some more. Again, you talk about butterfly flex. Derek Carr getting injured, causing Jameis to come in. He kind of gets Chris Olave going a bit. He gets a 15-point day and a nice day there. These things. Najee Harris, he plays him. He's finally starting to come good for Pat. Kenneth Walker, he had a good week. He's had quite a poor run of it of late. So just a big win there by Pat Stan. And you look on the other side of the board for Great Scott. Tough sledding, real tough sledding. Really unfortunate not to win this one, but we called it last week. We said the weakness of this team, the Achilles heel of this team is quarterback. He's obviously had Trevor Lawrence all season long, who's been, we looked at the points, serviceable all year long. You could bet your bottom dollar he was going to score between about 17 and 21 points week in, week out, which any other week would have won. If he had that score, would have won this one for Great Scott. He got 2 points. He absolutely killed him in a big spot. You could probably have streamed any of the starting quarterbacks last week, even Bryce Young, and it would have got him the win in this game. And don't forget, he moved away from him in the bye, elected to go back to him for this one. He obviously hasn't, through the season, looked to get any other quarterbacks on the roster either, and it's absolutely cost him here. And we kind of keep saying it. Look, the skill positions on this team are good. They're really good. We don't know what's going to happen with Dante Foreman, with Khalil Herbert coming back, but everything else is pretty solid. Really solid, in fact. And obviously, again, Jamar Chase will come on to potential impacts for Jamar Chase in the preview section, but it's a good team. It's just been let down by the quarterback time and time again. Jeff, as I say, not in a playoff seed at the moment, it's going to be an interesting end to the season for him. Nothing more to say on this one. This is the first time playing each other as well, so Pat Stan takes the win there. Then we'll go to the last game of the week, which was Bare Necessities against Pinningu. This one didn't have any playoff ramifications, and to be honest, we thought it would be an absolutely torrid affair. But it actually turned out to be a pretty decent game. Not bad at all. Ross actually took this one 106 to 92 over my dad's team. My dad's now 3 games on the bounce. He's lost. Sorry, 6 games on the bounce. He's lost. He started 3-1. Now sitting at 3 and 7, not ideal at all. But we'll start off with tight end FC. Dak Prescott coming through in a big way with 46 points there. He's been absolutely gangbusters the last few weeks there, and obviously you can see the rest of the team. He got something out of Kittle. Jonathan Taylor obviously has been solid there as well, and then the kicker and defense chipping in 10 apiece as well to help bring Ross's team that nice win. And we said this, look, Ross could actually be all right down the stretch because the team's got some pieces now to work with and everything. So it's obviously too late for the playoff race, but can certainly play spoilers for some other people. Meanwhile, for my dad's team, again, it's a nice bounce back. They had a pretty poor week the week before as well. It's nice to see Bijan Robinson being used correctly. I think Arthur Smith probably would have been fired if he didn't use his third overall draft pick running back a bit more like he should be. John Devontae has a nice week. Joe Mixon, Deebo Samuel, all solid. It's really Lamar Jackson letting my dad's team down, and that has kind of been the case some games this year. He's a very inconsistent player, very boom or bust. 15 points here. Look, it's not the worst, but the guy on the other side of the field from you is dropping 46, and the difference in the game is only 15. A 30-point game would have effectively won my dad this week, so it's a tough one. Again, some points on the bench there as well, but as I say, for the season, both these teams are just playing for fun at this point. The history of this matchup all time. Let's see here. Where is my dad's team? My dad is now 8-5 all time against Ross's team. I didn't do the pick'ems and stuff, which is kind of a happy accident because we were terrible at them. But just to recap you on that, so going back to the Dream Team Forge Flyers game, I locked Chris. I did that one in because I did the Wawa, and Chris picked the Dream Team, so Chris did all right there. We both picked Bucking the Trend in the UR Gold Bucking the Trend game, so we blew that one. I picked Great Scott, and Chris picked Pat Stan in the Pat Stan versus Great Scott game. Chris got that one, obviously dropped that one. And in this one, we both picked Bare Necessities, and my dad, Chris actually locked. He locked Bare Necessities as well. If didn't use the lock until this last game, and it was a gritty, hard one to call, and obviously blew it up there. So not a great week for us overall in the pick'em. We'll go to the around the league section now. See what interesting tidbits this has thrown out. So the Dream Team and UR Gold both won this week, even though neither had a top 30 scoring running back. Ross's team, which is Mr. Blobby last week, love it, David Blau, love it, as he's beat his prediction 4 weeks in a row. So talk about what we were saying, Ross's team is definitely on the up and up. My team, I've beaten my projected score for 4 weeks in a row as well. Great Scott has done it for 3 weeks in a row. Bucking the Trend's done it for 3 weeks in a row. Teams have won 53% of the time this season when they've thrown no picks in a week, so that was 50-51 points, so it's edging more towards if you don't have a pick, you're more likely to win. Teams have won 57.1% of the time this season when starting the league's top scoring quarterback of the week, 4-3 overall, unsurprising, and then UR Gold on a 4-game win streak. We know all about that. So that ends the recap. We will now go on to the league news. So starting off with injuries, a couple for Ross's team, and there are some more, but like I say, we'll cover these off in the preview section because they are specifically related to what has happened already in week 11. But for Ross's team, Deshaun Watson, he has been confirmed now to miss the rest of the season with the shoulder injury. He'd obviously been dealing with the shoulder issues all season long, but took a hit in the game last week against the Ravens, which has caused him to break a bone in his shoulder, meaning he needs surgery and he will miss the rest of the season. And then also for Ross, Pat Freiermuth is returning from IR. Tight end FC gets another good tight end back. Happy days. But not too many. Quite quiet week injury wise last week. But as I say, we'll come on in the preview section about some other injuries that should be updated. Looking at transactions, a few interesting ones this week. The Dream Team, they added Devin Singletary for the Raiders defense to the tune of $28. That was the highest bid on the week, but he was coming off a massive week. He's obviously been the starter with Damian Pierce missing time with an ankle injury, so nice add by Viv there. Adds some depth to an already pretty stacked team. You wonder if he's even going to get into the starting lineup there. It's a good add. But he is obviously kind of monopolising the backfield without Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce hasn't been great this year, but their O-line was famously playing really badly at the start of the season. So that was definitely a part of it. You do wonder that when Dameon Pierce probably eventually does come back, might not be this week, but at some point, does that affect Devin Singletary pulling back a bit? Could do. They weren't really using him around the goal line before either. So, but it's a worthy ad. We've got waiver to spend. Viv's in a position of strength, so certainly a spectacle ad fair to do. This next one, I wasn't even going to mention this one actually until I saw the money that was put on it. But Betnet has added Ty Chandler for Tyler Algier for $14. Now I know why he has done this because Alexander Mattison suffered a concussion last week, could miss this week's game. Alexander Mattison, as much as I love the guy, Alexander Mattison. He hasn't been great all season long, but the Vikings have stuck by him, and obviously we did see as well they traded for Cam Akers, and obviously he came in and was playing over Ty Chandler as well until he tore his Achilles. So I know why Oli has done this because of the opportunity and potentially he could play this week, but I don't think they really believe in Ty Chandler. He had a few nice runs and things last week, but I feel like if he'd have shown them something, they would have really turned it over to him already. He would be playing more of a role. He could have a 1 week role, like I said, with Mattison being out potentially. He did return to practice yesterday on a limited basis, but I think still does need to clear the protocol. I just don't see it really being an impact down the stretch. I know you kind of gotta gamble to get something back potentially, but I just don't really see this one paying through. Oli doesn't have much waiver budget left, certainly compared to other teams either. So I think that was potentially a bit of an overbid there. Don't mind making the ad. I just think spent potentially a little bit too much on that one. And then it was a busy week for Ollie's team. As we know, they have been ravaged by injury, so understandably. He also added Trey McBride for $2 and dropped Will Levis. I was a bit annoyed about this because I put in a 0 bid for him. I didn't think anyone else would care, but Ollie clearly did. And Trey McBride, he's been a bit of a revelation. If you're in a tight end league, he's been really good with Zach Ertz being on the shelf again. Zach Ertz will be coming back at some point, but the genie's kind of out the bottle maybe with him. He's a younger, obviously, player for this Cardinals team, and he's been good. He's a really good tight end actually, so I actually do quite like that ad by Ollie. And then Ollie also added Noah Brown and dropped Darrell Henderson as a free agent ad, and Noah Brown was obviously racked up I think over 300 yards over the last couple of weeks alone. He's obviously cooking with CJ Stroud. Now, it has helped that one of Nico or Robert Woods have missed each of the last few games where he has blown up, and he himself now actually hasn't been practicing the last couple of days. But obviously when someone puts up that kind of yardage, receivers are hard to come by on the waiver wire typically. So and Ollie, as I say, Ollie has Nico as well, so there's a bit of insurance there as well, so that's a pretty decent ad. Standing stats and milestones time, so we'll start off with the milestones. So we have a couple to pull to your attention. So Viv has notched his 100th regular season win, so congratulations to you, Viv. That's a good achievement. And Mike, with obviously we know you're not having the best of seasons, 1-9, and that's enough to pull you back to 500. I'm afraid you did have the gap to start the year, but yeah, you're now 34 and 34 all time in the win-loss, so yeah, you fall back to 500 there, unfortunately. Going to the standing stats and things then, so looking at the divisions. So in the Southampton division, Pakistan still leading this and still the number 1 seed with their huge close win last week against Great Scott. Sitting at 8-2, UA Gold also at 8-2. They're currently the wildcard team, and they are 2 games ahead of the wildcard at the moment. The next best wildcard we've seen is at 6-4, so only 4 games to go, as I say. So like I say, it's going to be hard potentially for a wildcard, the traditional wildcard at least, to unseat your gold. Remaining in the division, we've got Tom's Tyrants at 4-6 and Forge Flies at 2-8. Pulse the division, the Dream Team, they still reign supreme here with their win last week at 7-3, and now they have a win over the next team in this division because Great Scott didn't win last week in that close game against Pakistan. They're at 6-4, and look at this, Ixan. They were a little bit behind the pace, but now they're kind of right back in the thick of it as well for the division. Only 1 game behind at 6-4 there as well. Viv does have a bit of a points advantage over Great Scott and more widely so over Ixan, but yeah, there's enough time for Ixan potentially to make a late push here if the other two were to slip up, and then Bare Necessities there at the bottom at 3 and 7. Winchester Division, Gridiron Gang still at the top here, but both Gridiron Gang and Badentnes lost last week to give them a 6 and 4 record, so I'm obviously leading that one up on points. Ross's team, the only team to win in the Winchester Division last week at 3 and 7, and then Mike bucking the trend at the bottom there at 1 and 9. And looking around as well, so the Southampton Division, 3 of them won last week as well. So funny goings on there. As we said, Benedetti currently has the longest active losing streak at 6. Fortify is sitting at 2 as well. And the longest active win streak, You Are Gold have a 4-game win streak, and the Dream Team and Pakistan both have a 3-game win streak. So looking in terms of playoffs, so right now the division winners Pakistan, or division leaders I should say, Pakistan, the Dream Team and Gridiron Gang. Then we have You Are Gold as the traditional wildcard, and then I believe, the new points forward wildcard, actually, I misspoke earlier, is Great Scott. They are the new highest points forwards team among the non-playoff seeded teams, so they would currently be going to the playoffs today. But we have an interesting development here, because obviously we brought in the rule this year that if a wildcard team has one clear win higher than a division team, then they would get the first round bye instead of playing in the wildcard bowl. You Are Gold sitting 8 and 2. They're currently ahead of the Dream Team at 7 and 3, and the Winchester Division, which is 6 and 4. So depending how the rest of the season shakes out, we could see a scenario where, that's the first year bringing that in. One of the division winners will be having to play in that wildcard bowl instead of You Are Gold, which was a bit unjust considering the team hasn't scored too badly, but the points against has been the benefit and resulted in the number of wins they had. So make of that what you will. Talking about points forward, my team is still in top. There are 2 teams over 1,000 right now. My team and the Dream Team, I'm at 1,095. Viv is at 1,011. Then we have a couple of teams in the high 900s. Great Scott 918, Pakistan 977. And you got a few more in the mid tier behind that, and then obviously nearer the bottom, the expected teams in terms of points forward. Looking at points against, so bucking the trend, and Ross's team both over 1,000 points conceded, 1,054 and 1,013. So they've obviously been scored on a ton. Obviously understandable why their record isn't great, but obviously they've not scored a great deal either. My team is in third here with 977, so I'm 6 and 4. But so despite being the high scoring team, obviously I've been able to come that in some cases, but not in all cases. I've dropped a few, or I've had some points scored against me. Jeff's kind of in a similar boat. Obviously he's not scored quite as much as me, but 6 and 4 are similar points against there as well. And Chris again, understandably, 975, one of the most scored on teams as well. So all sensible reasons why some of the teams with the bad records at the moment have them. Then you've got the mid kind of table there, and then you get to the bottom. You got dead last in this category. Hasn't even considered 800 points yet. The only team to say that, 776, nearly a full 300 points again by the highest conceded team. Pakistan, as good as Pat's team has been, he's benefited this to a degree as well. Second lowest with just over 800 there, and then you can see a few other teams, even Viv's are benefiting a bit more than the median, but not so much so as some of the other teams there with 884 points against. And Ben's team's an interesting one because he's fairly lower down in the scoring, 876, but he's conceded the third least, 837 as well. So some of the slate pushers maybe been benefited by not conceding as much points. Looking at the breakdown, my team is still at the top here, 83 and 27, 5 and 6 week for me last week, which you can see is the worst I've had for a few weeks now. Pakistan there's a bit of a drop off after me though. Pakistan, Badentnes, Great Scott, Dream Team, all in the kind of mid 60 range, with the mid 40 losses range, so they're all kind of in around the same mark. You Are Gold, 57, 53. We've just talked about that, 8 and 2, so they are punching above their breakdown this year. And then again, what you'd expect in the bottom again, just going back to Ixan here. Look, the stats, it's a bit more historical. They have been a bit better of late, although they did have an 0-11 week not long ago. 47-63, but have a 6 and 4 record, and still in the playoff race there as well. So then we look at the coach ranking. Ross is at the top of this metric still. I'm behind. Obviously, I've had a pretty good year overall, and then You Are Gold there as well. All under at 90 points, all in the 80s. Ollie's the other team under 100 points with 97 left on the bench. A few teams in the kind of the middle of the tier here. But obviously some playoff teams, three of the potential playoff teams in the top of this metric. So obviously, they're helping their season. Then you go to the bottom half of this metric. Chris, unfortunately, as we know, it's been an issue for Chris all year long. Dead last, still 216, about 70 points. clear of the next closest team there, which is Pakistan at 154. And then you've got the Dream Team and the Great Scott. Again, a couple of other playoff teams all around the 150 mark. So that's it for the standings and stats. We will go to... Actually, before we do that, the Trader have effectively 7 teams in the playoff detonators. Obviously, mathematically, everyone is alive with the points forward wildcard, but realistically, those are the teams that are in it. The 2 teams that aren't in the playoff seed at the moment are the Detonators and Iksan. I went through obviously that earlier, so yeah, it's the debate corner is this week. Which ones will not make playoffs? So I'm gonna automatically just put in Pakistan and UR Gold, like I say, at 8 and 2. Between them, obviously one of them, there's only 4 games left, so one of them has basically already won the division. And like I say, being 2 games clear of a wild card team effectively at the moment with 4 to go. If realistically, if one of them, if they pick up one more win, they've pretty much locked up the wild card as well. So I'm going to say both of them are in. I think the Dream Team, I think they've just got too much. They've got a win lead in the division. They've also got the points benefit as well, which kind of counts. It helps a bit. So I'm going to say the Dream Team get into the playoffs. I'm going to say my team will hopefully get into the playoffs as well. Being the highest scoring team, I'm leading the division at the moment, so I can obviously still either win the division. If not, I can fall back and have the highest points forward. And that's another key point for Viv as well, with those points forward. Even if he doesn't win the division, assuming I did, again, he would get there by way of the points forward wildcard as well. And then that leaves one spot for one of Great Scott, Iksan and the Detonators. I'm going to throw Iksan out just based on their points forward, because if it's a 3-way race for the points forward wildcard, they're going to lose out to those other teams there unless he has a really good end to the season. He could obviously still potentially win the division, but he has to get one more win than the Dream Team due to that points gap. And I just don't think I can see Ben's team. I don't think they're going to win out or have a particularly good run down the stretch. So I'm going to throw Ben's team out. So that leaves the last playoff spot between Great Scott and the Detonators. That's a tough call. It's a real tough call. I'm going to go with the Detonators because they've got the better quarterback. So the Detonators will find a way. They've been stringing players together all year long. They've got the base of the quarterback. Great Scott does not have that. Trevor Lawrence will have better weeks. They have got a really good skill position. It doesn't really feel right me saying this because their skill players are a lot better, like for like, at the Detonators. But QB is costing them. It's cost them already. Could cost them again. So that's it for me. Great Scott and Iksan will miss out on the playoffs, which is actually one of the currently playoff seeded teams because Great Scott is currently the points forward wildcard. So that's it for Debate Corner this week. So we'll go on to the previews for the week then. So on the docket for this week, we have the Detonators against UR Gold. We have what else? Ross's team Peningu against Pakistan. Sorry, that was the Ollie Bowl. We've got the Goose Bowl in Ross's team against Pakistan. Back in the trend against Iksan. Grenadier against Bare Necessities. That's the Father Son Bowl, the Founder Bowl, Corona Bowl 2 rematch. Forge Flies against Great Scots, the AFC South Bowl, since they both support AFC South teams. And the Dream Team versus Dom's Tyrants. But the way we're going to go this week for the marquee matchup, you got to go with the playoffs at this point, and I think there's only one game on the docket, that has playoff ramifications, and that is the Detonators against UR Gold. So it's the Ollie Bowl for the marquee matchup for week 11. Here we go. Which Ollie will reign supreme? Only the fantasy projections will know until we see the final scores. But the fantasy projections say that it will be Ollie Gardner-Beddoes, the king himself, will reign supreme, extend his 4-game winning streak to 5 to the tune of a 90 to 85 point victory. But then there's 6 and 4, obviously vying for the Winchester division at the moment. Both these teams not in the division lead at the moment, but competing for it. Ollie Bedett has 11 points on the board, courtesy of Justin Tucker from last night's game. Looking down the lineups, bye week hell is over for Ollie Bedett. Jalen Hurts returns to the lineup, as does DeAndre Swift. Elsewhere, I think the lineup isn't changed, so that just drops Romeo Dobbs, who has been dropped from the team entirely, and I can't remember who else he played last week. Apologies, Ollie, but he's going with the 21 personnel this week. 2 running backs, tight end and 2 wide receivers. On the other side of the board for you are gold. AJ Brown, he comes back into the lineup coming off of bye, dropping, I think, Rashid Shaheed to the bench. So he's going with the 20 personnel, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time: the Detonators are 7-3 against Ollie Gardner-Beddoes, your gold. So has the history on his side, but does he have the luck in this one? Will he come through with the win here again? Let's take a look down. Let's start with your guard, Brock Purdy. Nice matchup against Tampa Bay. They're at home, so it could be another good day there. AJ Brown. Now the AJ Brown matchup against KC is going to be really interesting because KC has been really good defense all year long. Specifically as well, they have shut down number 1 wide receivers. To steal a stat from CBS Fantasy podcast, I don't believe any lead receiver that they've faced this year has got more than 62 yards, and that list is quite impressive. It includes DJ Moore, Tyreek Hill, a lot of other good names. Apologies, I can't remember, and only one of those players has scored a touchdown as well, so it's actually a real brutal matchup there. And what we were saying in the recap, the rest of the skill positions for you are just uninspiring. DK Metcalf has not been the one all year long. James Conner gets on paper pretty good matchup against the Texans, but you know, what are we going to get from this Cardinals team? Tony Pollard, he's been terrible all year long. Rick Dowdle's eating into the workload again. On paper gets a nice matchup here against Carolina, but he's just not delivered. Jordan Addison, he hasn't been as good since Kirk Cousins has been down. Again, he's either going to get the Patrick Surtain treatment if JJ doesn't play, or if JJ comes back, he's going to move back in the pecking order. And Hodgson had a really big week last week, and Dobbs seems to like him. So, I don't know. He's got the Lions against Chicago, which could be a nice day. Justin Fields is returning, but that could actually be a good thing from a fantasy defensive point of view. But it doesn't profile as a good week for Ollie Gardner-Beddoes. We look to the other side of the board for the Detonators. Jalen Hurts against KC. Again, go back to what I say. It's a tough defensive matchup, but Jalen Hurts is really, really good. Obviously, that game in general is going to be, lights out. It's going to be a great one to watch. He could probably still come through. He might not have a great day, but he's should deliver. And again, we look at the skill positions for Ollie's team. There's a lot of reasonable pieces, but is there anything great? Devontae Adams could be going up against Jalen Ramsey in Miami. That's not great, obviously, with AOC. He's getting volume now, which is nice, obviously, with Josh McDaniel gone, and so he should. So he does have a stable floor, but the ceiling is certainly capped. Deontay Johnson, tough matchup against that tough Cleveland defense. Again, DeAndre Swift facing that Kansas City defense as well. Jerome Ford facing a pretty stingy Pittsburgh defense again, and obviously they've lost Deshaun Watson now, so they've got a rookie quarterback, Ryan Thompson-Robinson, starting, so that doesn't help there either. He's getting vultured to high heaven by Kareem Hunt as well. And Dalton Kincaid against the Jets. Kincaid's been pretty good. I'm not sure if Dawson Knox is back this week or not. That's definitely one to watch. But the Jets kind of own Buffalo. I know this game's in Buffalo, but the Bills obviously on offense, they aren't hitting on all cylinders at the moment as well. They've got a new offensive coordinator. Obviously the 11 points is nice there from Tucker, and then the Browns defense have been against Pittsburgh at home, which again is a pretty good matchup, but last time round when Dorian Thompson-Robinson started, granted the circumstances were pretty different. I think it was only on the day or late in the week that he found out he would be starting. Browns did okay playing it up against the Ravens, but weren't brilliant. So if your quarterback's putting you in bad situations, it can be tough on the fantasy defense. So it's a really tough one to call for me, really tough one. And for me personally in the playoff race as well, there's no good way about it, because obviously if Ollie wins, it's not good for me in terms of the division. If Ollie Cadet wins, if Ollie Gardner-Beddoes wins, he goes forward in the wild card, and obviously again in terms of the number 1 seed pushes that away as well. So it's a tough one for me to call. I think Ollie does have some more options on the bench as well. Just looking down, he could go to Trent McBride, Rashee Rice, because the Eagles have been flamed by receivers all year long. Maybe Ty Chandler, Nico Collins potentially if he's back as well. So he's got some options on the bench. He can potentially improve the skill positions. I don't know where to go with this one. I'm going to go with You Are Gold just based on the history. He has been avoiding the points against all year long. And Ollie's team hasn't quite been firing on all cylinders. I think he's lost 3 out of his last 4 maybe, or something like that. So I'm going to go with your gold. I hate to say it, but I think, yeah, Purdy should have a decent day. He can probably cobble enough together that obviously the defense and special teams will carry him again, and he'll, use his curse to make Ollie score 50 points or something like that. So that's the way I'm going to go there. We're going to the next game now then. Here we go. It's Peningu, Coach Nunn's team against Pakistan here in the Goose Bowl. No player from implications here, but an important one for Pakistan. He can't drop this 8-2, 3-game win streak. Obviously, still looking to stay ahead in the division and potentially the number 1 overall seed. He's projected to win this one 86-77, and currently is winning with the score of 15-2. Those 15 points courtesy of the Ravens D, who've got 10 and Zay Flowers at 5, and the 2.3 for Ross's team courtesy of Mark Andrews. On Pat's side of the board, Jared Goff remains in the lineup at the moment. I think roster-wise, AJ Dillon comes into the lineup as well, dropping Chris Olave to the bench. Alvin Kamara comes in as well, probably for, I think Zay Flowers came in, so Olave goes out. Obviously, they're both on bye. So Pat is rolling with the 30 personnel this week, 3 running backs and 2 wide receivers. On the other side of the board for Ross's team, I think Evan Ingram comes in for Jonathan Taylor, who's on a bye. Other than that, they're unchanged, so he's going with a whopping 4 personnel this week, 4 tight ends and 1 wide receiver. The history of this matchup all time, Pakistan are 5-5 against Ross's team, so it's a split series. So we've got to start with the Ross's team. Mark Andrews only with the 2 points there on Thursday Night Football, and he suffered a severe ankle injury by the sounds of it, and is expected to unfortunately miss the rest of the season for Ross's team. So that will probably curtail their spoiler efforts, their berserker efforts down the stretch, as he was one of the key pieces of the team. He's going to be without T. Higgins again. I'll ping back into the injury updates as well for the other game there. Should be getting Pratt Freiermuth back, but how good is that? I don't really know. Look, this team relies on Dak Prescott at the moment. It has been. He's playing Carolina, which hasn't actually been the best matchup for passing game, but it could be an okay one still. He's got Stephon Diggs against the Jets. He's going to get the Sauce Guard and the treatment. Could still have a decent day, but who knows? Kill against the Bucks. That's nice. Kelsey. He's not been the Kelsey of old. He could still come through. It's obviously a big game coming off the bye as well. If Mahomes is a bit better, Evan Ingram. Who knows? He could be okay. And then we got a kicker and defense combo here. The Greg Joseph and the Vikings playing against Denver. It's okay. Don't particularly love it. It's fine. On the other side of the board, Jared Goff at home against Chicago should be pretty good. Obviously, Jared Goff loves home. DJ Moore against Detroit as well. That could be pretty good potentially there. Obviously, the 10 point, the 5 and the 10 from Flowers and the Ravens defense. That's a decent start. Dillon against the Chargers, not too sure about that one. I don't think Jones has suffered any setbacks or anything like that. I think Pat might be playing the matchup there, given the bye week issues he's got. I don't know. I feel like there's potentially better options out there. Najee Harris again against a tough Browns run D, and Ken Walker again. It's LA as well. It's not the best of matchups. I don't love the setup for Pat this week, but I don't think you can look past him. I don't think Ross's team is going to have enough unless Prescott goes off. Unless Diggs has a decent day. If we see a different Bills team here, Kelsey could have a good day too. But no, I'm going Pakistan in this one. And don't need to really add anything else there. So Pat for me to move to 9-2, and the other Southampton Division team in your goal as well. Should we just call that the Corona Bowl right now and call it a day? I don't know. Anyway, let's go on to the next game. Bucking the Trend take on Ixan here. Bucking the Trend obviously out of the race, looking to avoid the worst record in NFC history. Meanwhile, Ixan 6-4, 2-game win streak, looking to get themselves into a playoff spot. Projections say they're going to win this one 95-82. Let's take a look down the lineup. So for Ben's team, I think maybe Christian Kirk comes into the lineup, as does Courtland Sutton, dropping Alexander Mattison to the bench, or maybe it's just one of those two. So he's currently going with D20 personnel, 2 running backs, 3 receivers. On the other side of the board for Bucking the Trend, Tua comes back from the bye into the starting lineup in favour of Baker Mayfield. Devontae Smith comes in as well. We're coming back from bye, and that drops Pittman to the bench, who has gone on to bye, so he is going with the 20 personnel. 2 next. 3 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time. Xana 6-1, my god, against Mike's team. That could quickly become 7-1. We'll start off with Ben's team. Mahomes at home against Philly. It feels like a Mahomes game, doesn't it? You know, big game. Fairly tough defense, but they've been getting flamed in the passing game because teams can't run on them. Mike Evans against San Fran. San Fran have been a bit of a civvy in the passing game there as well. Christian Kirk against Tennessee. Again, you know, some nice matchups here for Ben this week. Aaron Jones against the Chargers. Again, that's good. Eckler against the Packers. That's good. Sutton's been a touchdown machine this year. Does face a tough Minnesota defense, though. And then the Chiefs against Philly. Don't love that. I'd bounce off of that if I had the option to for Ben. The Saints are on a bye, so yeah, tricky one there. Looking on the other side of the board, Tua playing the Raiders at home. Dolphins love home. Dolphins also love beating up on bad teams. It's just a question of how much they're going to run. It's a generous run defense, the Raiders, or it was historically anyway, but it's a bit different now, obviously, with Antonio Pierce. But Tua could still have a decent day. Hopkins against the Jacksonville Jaguars. On paper, that's a good matchup, but you know what Will Levis what's he going to do? Devontae Smith against KC. They're probably going to lean on him a little more now that Dallas Goedert is hurt. But like I said, it's been a pretty stingy defense, so we'll see there. Chris Godwin win against San Francisco. We got the 2 Bucs receivers here. That could be nice. Barkley ceiling completely capped against that Washington team. So yeah, he's not going to do too much. And then Jacobs as well against Miami. Yeah, Jacobs has been okay as a floor player. He's been getting the volume, but again, it's a tough matchup. They've been a bit more competitive in the last couple of games, but they could be behind a bit more in this one, so that could pull them out a little bit more. It's a defense off here as well. Eagles against KC. Again, I don't love that. I know the Chiefs haven't been quite the Chiefs they have been in previous seasons, but it's an hour ahead, coming off a bye. Andy Reid is usually very good coming off a bye, yeah, don't particularly love that, but no, I'm going to go with Ixan here. Obviously, Mike's team just hasn't been it all year long, unfortunately. They've been okay, but the points against and everything as well. You go with Ben's team, and Ben has he's had a nice little schedule to get these wins over the last few weeks to keep him alive in the playoff race, but you can only play what's put in front of you, I suppose. So we'll go on to the next game now. Good Gang face Ben Necessities. It's the Father Son Bowl, the Founder Bowl, and the Corona Bowl to rematch. The projections say this one's going to be in favour of 91-88 to Gridiron Gang, but Ben Necessities does have 54 points on the board and currently has a player on bye in the lineup, so when they change that around, they will have the projected lead. Looking down the lineup, so Gridiron Gang, Jalen Waddle comes into the lineup over Taysom Hill, I believe. Yep, that's the only change for me, I think, this week, so I'm going with 20 personnel, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. On the other side of the board for Ben Necessities, no changes there at the moment. The 54, courtesy of Lamar Jackson, Joe Mixon, and Evan McPherson. The history of this matchup all time, Gridiron Gang 8-14 against Ben Necessities. So it's been a great start. When I woke up and saw 54 from my dad's team, I forgot that he had more in this game than just Lamar Jackson and panicked for a second, but it's still a good return. 28 points from Jackson. I've been a points magnet, as we've seen, so of course this is the week that he has a better day. Joe Mixon has a good day as well, despite the Burrow injury. We'll come on to that in a bit later. And Evan McPherson has a solid day as well, so it's a good start by my dad's team. What else is he going to get from Marquise Brown against the Texans? Tough to say. Samuel against Tampa, that could be a nice matchup. Javonte Williams against Minnesota, it's not so good. And then the Bills defense against the Jets. This Bills defense isn't great, but it is at home, and the Jets have obviously not been great either, so that's okay. So obviously with the points in the bag, it has been a nice start. My dad's got Gus Edwards on the bench with 19. If he subbed that in for the bye week, it would have been curtains for me this week already, I think. So he's got Hawkinson against Denver. He's a bit banged up. Mitchell against Tampa. Nakua against Seattle. He's got an option there, but there's nothing particularly enticing. So I think it's obviously been a good start, but the game is not over. For me, Allen against the Jets, he doesn't typically do well against the Jets. Obviously, he didn't do well in the first game of the season against the Jets. He had a bad week last week. They're in a bit of a funk, new OC, but maybe that galvanizes them. Who knows? It is a tough defense, tough matchup, but obviously I can't get away from him. Waddle against the Raiders, that should be good. Obviously, kind of similar to Tuillo, as long as they don't run the ball the whole time. He's a bit healthy now coming off the bye. Dell's obviously been a revelation for me as a free agent ad this year, playing Arizona, so that's okay. Lockett against LA, he's not practiced the last couple of days with a hamstring injury. He has been dealing with that all year long, so we'll have to see what happens there. But he could be okay. McCaffrey, tough matchup against the Bucks, but it's at home and it's Christian McCaffrey. Come on. David Montgomery in the revenge game against the Bears, and I've got the Dolphins D against the Raiders as well, so hopefully, fingers crossed, that could be a bit of a lullathon. If Lockett can't go, I could pivot to one of Isaiah Pacheco or Amari Cooper. Pacheco matchup isn't great against the Eagles, and then Cooper's obviously playing with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. On paper, it's a good matchup, but Joe Porter Jr. has been a pretty good corner of late, so he could maybe shadow and shut him down a bit. I do have Brandon Cooks as well, but I don't think he's really an option. And Khalil Herbert on IR, he might come off and play against Detroit as well, but again, Detroit across the whole season has been a pretty stout run defense. This is a close one to call because the points in the bag for my dad's team. I'm gonna back my team here though. I have had the points this year on his side either, but no, it could be a good father son bowl. Could be an entertaining one for sure. So we'll go on to the next game here, the penultimate game of the week. It's Forge Flyers against Great Scott here. Both these teams carry a losing streak, 4 for Forge Flyers and 2 for Great Scott. And Forge Flyers are projected to snap it 83 to 80, which would be a blow to Great Scott's playoffs hopes. Great Scott is currently leading 7 points, courtesy of Jamar Chase for start on his side. Lineup wise, he is unchanged at the moment, so still going with the 30 personnel. 3 running backs, 2 receivers. For Forge Flyers, Sam Howell comes into the starting lineup for Kyler Murray, and Kareem Hunt comes in, as does Darrell Henderson, for Ramondre Stevenson, who is on bye, and Dalton Schultz. So Chris is going with his beloved 30 personnel, 3 running backs and 2 receivers this week. I think this is the first time these two have played each other, as well. So looking down, let's start off with Great Scott. Jamar Chase got bailed out with a touchdown late in that Thursday night game. The 7 points from Chase obviously isn't ideal. Lawrence, we just don't know what Lawrence is going to turn up. Tennessee hasn't been a great defense, but you know, they could be feisty and they know how to play the Jaguars too. Amon-Ra St. Brown against Chicago, that's pretty good. Foreman, he's pretty banged up right now. Not sure he's going to play, and it's a tough matchup against Detroit. Rashad White against San Fran, that's not the best either. Jamar Gibbs against Chicago, that should be pretty nice. Seahawks D at the moment as well against LA, that's okay, but Stafford's going to be back, so who knows. Looking on the bench, I would imagine he'll make some changes because he's getting the Dolphins running backs back, Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. But is he going to throw both of them in? Is he going to throw one? Will the one he throws in turn up or not? Who knows? He's actually got Jeff Wilson as well, but he ain't playing. So it's a tricky week for Great Scott this week. Meanwhile, looking at Forge Flyers side of the board, somehow against the Giants, I love it. You know, they could potentially lean on the run here, but he's leading the league in passing yards at the moment and things, so it could be a real good day for him. Calvin Ridley, I don't know what Calvin Ridley is going to turn up. The matchup is good, but he's just been so inconsistent all year long, so God only knows. Ayuk against Tampa, that's nice. Henry loves to roll on Jacksonville, and he's from the Jacksonville area as well, so that could be good. Kareem Hunt against Pittsburgh, it's, again, not the best of matchup, but he seems to get a touchdown every game at the moment, so until he doesn't, you'd say that he would. Darrell Henderson against Seattle as well. He should be the lead running back this week. We're obviously in it with Royce Williams. That's okay. And Cowboys against Carolina. That could be a lull fest. You know what? I'm going back to the well. It blew up last week, but you know, I believe the win is coming for Chris. So on that basis, I am locking it up. Forge Flyers are going to take this one. I don't love the makeup for Great Scott this week. They're probably going to go and win because we know I suck at locking games. Yeah, no, I'll go with Chris this week and believe in him. His charitable efforts will spirit him on to get the win this week. Again, I realise I've not been doing the injury stuff, so I'll dovetail back after I've done the last update here, the last preview, so we'll go on to that now. The Dream Team takes on Tom's Tyrants here in the last game of the week. The Dream Team obviously looking to keep it going in the playoff race for the playoffs and the race for the Portal Division. Meanwhile, Tom's Tyrants, they played the spoiler last week. Could they do it again? Projections say no. They're going to lose 101, my God, to 69. Tom's Tyrants does have 11 points on the board, courtesy of Joe Burrow. We'll come back to that one in a second. Tom does have a player on bye at the moment, so he hasn't changed his team. So currently fielding the 20 personnel, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. On the other side of the board for the Dream Team, let's see here, Devin Singletary comes into the lineup in favour of Terry McLaurin, I think, so he's going with 30 personnel this week. 3 running backs, 2 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time, the Dream Team are 6-11 all time against Tom's Tyrants. That may narrow a bit after this game though. So yeah, let's start for Tom's team. Joe Burrow supposedly entered the game healthy, although doubt it because he was spotted with a brace. Injured his wrist in the game and he only finished with the 11 points there. So that's worrying, obviously ongoing, and for all of the Bengals skill position players as well. Yeah, not a great start there for Tom. Elsewhere, Thielen against Dallas, forget about it. Bryce Young is not playing great at the moment. This Panthers team is blows. Keenan Allen is a bit injured. He blew up last week against me, typically against Green Bay. If J.I. Alexander's back, that's not ideal, but he is the focal point of that offense, so providing he's playing, should still be good. He's obviously got James Cook in against the Jets at the moment. I don't love that as well. He nearly got benched and lost his role last week until they went back to him. And Brian Robinson against the Giants, that's quite nice. Steelers against Cleveland, yeah, you know what, even though it's on the road, Dorian Thompson-Robinson didn't do too well in his first start, could be a bit better, we'll see, but Steelers D is nasty. He's probably going to bring Cooper Kupp in for Drake London as well, let's be honest, which he should be solid obviously with Matthew Stafford back, providing he's healthy, but it's definitely one thing to watch out for. So, okay, set up for Tom this week, but Burrow is obviously kind of setting back from the outset for the Dream Team, just now against Green Bay. They're going to have to keep passing. The defense isn't really stopping anyone at the moment. Tyreek Hill against Vegas, that could be an absolute lol fest. CeeDee Lamb against Carolina. They are quite good against the pass, Carolina, but, you know, can this Cowboys team just overwhelm them? Devin Singletary against Arizona, that's a fairly good matchup. How run-heavy are they going to be, though? Obviously, he got a fair amount of work last week against the Bengals, so they could go back to the well there. If Dameon Pierce misses the game, which he could well do, that profiles to be nice there as well. Etienne gets a pretty tough matchup against Tennessee, but, again, he's kind of a linchpin of that offense. Same for Breece Hall, and that matchup against Buffalo isn't as scary as you think it is. Niners D against Tampa at home, it's okay. Baker's been played pretty well this year though, but for me, I've got to go with the Dream Team, I think, here, just based on the low points from Joe Burrow to start off the week. So yeah, I think the Dream Team will pick this one up here. So injury wise, I'll do a speed round of everything. So Jerry Jeudy, questionable. He did get a ding, I think, in the game last week, so one to watch out for there. Otherwise they're fine. Keenan Allen, he's got a separated AC joint. I think they mentioned his shoulder, but he's going to try and play through it. Garrett Wilson, questionable. I think it might be an elbow or something, but he should play. Merida Mercado, ankle, but Tom probably doesn't care about him. But detonators, you are gold. I think Deontay Johnson has a thumb injury, but he'll be back. Oh, Noah Brown's been ruled out now. Nico Collins, questionable. He's trying to come back from his ankle injury. Definitely one to watch on the weekend. Clean bill of health for you are gold. Then we've got Russell's team against Pakistan. T. Higgins, he was inactive with his ankle injury. Mentioned Fryman is back. Jefferson could be back for Pakistan. That would be huge if he is. Clean bill of health beyond that. Mike's team, Barkley questionable, but he's going to play through that. Aaron Jones questionable again. I'd expect him to play. Mattison very questionable with his concussion, and Watson is a bit dinged up as well, questionable, but he should play for my team. I mentioned Lockett with the hamstring. Definitely need to watch the practice reports today. The Seahawks love trolling with the injury reports, but he's been playing through his hamstring injury, so he could do so. Khalil Herbert could be back from his ankle injury. Hawkinson questionable again. He's dealing with a few things, but he could play. Forge Fly is great. Scott, Dameon Pierce, he's questionable with his ankle injury again. Could come back this week, but want to check. Achan should be back from the knee injury that's put him on IR. Mostert's questionable, but should play. Dante Foreman very questionable as well. I think it's a groin injury he's dealing with. And that's your injury speed round, and that brings us to the end of the show. Thanks for watching. If you did, appreciate the solo ones aren't quite as entertaining as the other ones, but yeah, I hope you have a good weekend. Good on you, Chris and Mike. Hope it's going well. Best of luck in your matchups, unless you're playing me, of course. Goodbye, everybody.